Russia's Vladimir Putin agrees on the need to send inspectors to Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as fears grow about its safety.
It is a mandate of the International Agency of Atomic Energy. It's up to them to do the negotiations. We are, of course, ready to support them.
After Turkey successfully brokered Ukraine's grain export deal, can President Erdogan help end Russian military operations at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant? The United Nations Secretary-General has held talks with Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa and is due to travel to Istanbul next. Turkey is the only NATO country that has a relationship with Russia, and President Erdogan brokered the wheat export deal from Odessa. Now it's hoped he can facilitate an end to Russian military operations at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant and a ceasefire in Ukraine. James Jeffrey was US ambassador to Turkey from 2008 until 2010 and knows both the Turkish and Russian presidents well. I asked him what Istanbul can do to help resolve the conflict in Ukraine.
Turkey has, in many respects, taken a strong position on the side of Ukraine in the conflict so far, closing the straits to Russian naval reinforcements, providing drones and other supplies to Zelensky, and generally being diplomatically helpful. But nonetheless, Erdogan has a touch with Putin that most Western leaders don't have. In some respects, although they are geopolitical rivals, they're kind of 19th century peoples who understand each other. Erdogan doesn't lecture Putin about human rights or democracy or anything. They basically try to cut deals. And that's helpful in a situation like this, and we think that it may be opening the door to at least a UN IAEA inspection of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which is very, very important right now.
You've worked closely with both Mr. Erdogan and Mr. Putin before. Mr. Putin notoriously difficult to negotiate with. What might Mr. Erdogan have over him in terms of leverage and being able to get something out of him?
Well, the leverage is Putin needs at least someone in the NATO camp that he can talk to. And for many reasons, as I said, Erdogan is his preferred candidate because Erdogan, A, doesn't lecture him about human rights or other progressive Western values that neither Erdogan or Putin take very seriously. B, Putin has certain pressure points over Erdogan, such as almost half of Turkey's gas consumption comes from Russia. But more importantly, Putin realizes, and we saw this in the grain deal that Guterres and Erdogan cut with Putin just a few weeks ago, and that is working well so far. Putin, I think, realizes that he's getting a real bad public relations black eye around the world for some of the things he's doing. Blocking food shipments was one thing. Allowing this, the largest nuclear plant in all of Europe to perhaps go out of control is another Chernobyl. And therefore, Putin is looking for ways out, and Erdogan is a good person to turn to.
If he is looking for a way out, what might that mean for the areas of Ukraine that Russia's already captured?
Right. These are step-by-step things. First, you let the grain shipments out, even though that was putting pressure on the West and on the rest of the world. Then you do something about the nuclear plant. I think these are all trial balloons by Putin, who is very, very smart. He understands military affairs, and he must know by now that he's not going to succeed in overrunning all of Ukraine. So sooner or later, he has to find a way out of this crisis. I don't think that time is now, but I think he is building block by block a basis for shifting to that kind of compromise, ceasefire, peacekeeper solution when and if the time comes.
Ultimately, do you think President Erdogan can seal this deal?
I think that the temporary deal on the, at least the inspection of the nuclear plant, I think that he and Guterres and now Macron have all played an important role, and I think we'll see a success there. Whether we can work further on this is what Guterres and Erdogan both said in their press statements after the meeting with Zelensky and Lviv, Ukraine, earlier today. I think they really hope that they can find some kind of ceasefire, a possible way out of this crisis, which is impacting not only the region, but the whole world.
Vladimir Putin has said UN officials will be allowed to visit and inspect the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine.
The announcement comes amid growing concern over the safety of Europe's largest nuclear plant. Our correspondent Hugo Bachega is in Odessa for us. Hugo, the concerns now are just how quickly this can happen, or the hopes are that this can happen quickly.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Naga. Yesterday, President Zelensky, in his nightly address, said the specific details of a visit by international monitors were being discussed, and Russia appears to have dropped its demand that any mission should go through Russian-controlled territory. Now, if confirmed, this visit could suggest a possible de-escalation in the crisis around this nuclear facility. Now, Rafael Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said he was willing to lead a visit of international monitors himself. But fighting around the complex continues. There are reports of 4 civilians who have been injured by Russian shelling. That's according to the Ukrainian authorities there. And the background to all of this is that this complex has been under Russian occupation since the beginning of March. The Ukrainians accuse the Russians of using this facility as a shield to launch attacks against Ukrainian targets, perhaps knowing that the Ukrainians are unlikely to retaliate. The Russians reject those accusations. They say Russians there are protecting this plant, but obviously this level of military activity has raised fears of a nuclear catastrophe.
Indeed.